Hello YouTube, today we have the CH versus the X55 versus the Thrustmaster Warthog in what can be called the not-so-budget HOTAS overview. Now, I've owned all of these peripherals for at least 6 months, logged at least 40 to 50 flight hours throughout various types of space and flight combat games, whether it be World War I type dogfighting sims like Rise of Flight, or World War II such as IL-2 Stormovik, modern jet combat sims such as Falcon BMS and various DCS titles such as A-10C or F-15C or Su-27 or F-86 or MiG-21, as well as commercial aviation sims such as Microsoft Flight Simulator X and X-Plane. And I think a lot of it has to do with basically three factors that come into play when making a decision of what setup to buy. Now, you can probably guess which one's my overall favorite. I'll give you a hint, it's the one that's connected to the computer. But there are a few other factors that come into play here. Now, these are not budgetary, what I would consider budgetary items, because the cheapest one here is $200, and it can go up to upwards of $500 to $700. Although the Warthog has been on sale over the past couple of months, last Christmas time, for $350 on Newegg, and I believe Amazon as well has a couple of flash sales. So there's been some price competition in that market. Now, I'm not going to say absolutely, although I will say overall I had the best experience across the whole gambit of flight sim games, as well as space combat games with the CH gear. It seemed to perform equally at a high level, depending on, well, it didn't really matter if you were flying a World War I biplane or the latest and greatest from Anvil Aerospace and Star Citizen. It performs very well in World War I, World War II games due to its relatively light springing and wide throws on the stick. And the throttle, likewise, is very easy to use. Some people don't like the linear action, and I've done more in-depth reviews on each and every one of these. But what makes this setup absolutely supreme, in my opinion, for space combat games like Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen is this analog mini-stick, which is just really hard to beat, because then you have basically the best of both worlds. You have a HOTAS setup along with a full analog mini-stick for controlling maneuvering thrusters. Very, very, very handy. Now, for those who want to, say, use this throttle with other joysticks, you can do so because you can actually buy this throttle standalone. Although, as of the video in late January of 2015, this is actually out of stock for at least the next month, until sometime in February or March worldwide. That's just how much of a rush of demand there's been for that particular throttle and setup. Now, the design is 20 years old. It doesn't look sexy. It's made of a glass-filled polymer, so an industrial grade plastic, but internals, it's a metal potentiometer, and it has a 20-year proven track record of general reliability. It's highly regarded by many in the flight sim community as being a very, very rugged, durable stick and throttle combination that works. However, stick does not have yaw, so you do need rudder pedals, which is going to be a recurring theme across this lineup. Now, the X55. The X55 comes in at $200. It does have twist. It's been on sale for around $170 a couple times on Newegg and Amazon.com. So it is possible to save a few dollars on it. It's still, I consider it to be relatively new. It's only been out for about a year, and it's already garnered a reputation of having quality control issues. People who generally get a good one, this has been a good one out of the factory, don't have very many problems, but if you get a lemon, you're basically RMAing it. And the rate of RMA is surprisingly high, but not if you follow the X52. I think that they're very, very similar in terms of those two things. Now, there's a couple of considerations that I never really took into account until the X55 is actually being sent off to a new home here later today, and the reason being is the person it's going to is actually physically disabled, doesn't have use of their legs, therefore any HOTAS with a set of rudder pedals for yaw is completely out of the question. And if you do have physical, reasons, disabilities, problems, and things like that that would make using rudder pedals difficult or impossible, then this is probably the HOTAS on the market for you. Now, I still think it's more of a jet combat sim stick. It's designed really to compete and take on this stick, the Thrustmaster Warthog, for DCS simulation series, the A10C and other DCS titles. And as a jet sim stick, it is an adequately decent stick. I really do like it, despite its quality control issues and things like that. The one issue that I have particular gripes about is still just the amount of force it takes to maneuver this throttle. Now, after an additional 20 hours of use from when I did my initial review videos on it, it's starting to loosen up some, which is a really, really good thing. It's just still nowhere near as smooth as, say, the Thrustmaster Warthog throttle or the CH throttle. Now, some people have resorted to taking the unit apart and removing a plastic piece that essentially provides tension for these throttles, and then they report it's smooth as butter, but again, I think if you do that, you void your warranty. I'm not sure what it is about Satec products, but it seems like in order to make them as good as they could be, they always require some sort of warranty voiding mod. I'm still not totally against it, but it is still kind of caveat emptor, buyer beware, that quality control and durability are two factors that we don't understand or we don't have any good data about. It could very well be that you spend $200 and the stick only lasts on average about 2 years, at which point you're going to end up spending $400, and for that amount of money you could have had a CH setup, or if you find a Thrustmaster Warthog on sale, essentially have spent less on one of those two options. Now, the CH gear has gone up in price. I paid $260 for the entire setup a year ago. Now, I did find the fighter stick through an Amazon warehouse deal on sale for the same price as a combat stick. So, say $280 a year ago. This year at this time, it's going to run you closer to $350, $360 for the setup, just due to demand and Amazon's pricing algorithm and its suggested retail price of $150 per component. It used to be, I bought the rudder pedals for $88, throttle for $94, and this for $80, essentially. And its normal everyday retail price was about $95 this time last year. Now it's, I think, around $120, $117, $120, depending on what day of the week and what the demand has been like in the last 2 weeks on Amazon.com. So, finally we have the Thrustmaster Warthog, which is certainly the most expensive setup here. Now, it was on sale at Newegg and Amazon at Black Friday for, I think it was like $400 for a set of rudder pedals. Now, again, like the CH, this does not have twist on it. Therefore, you're going to need a set of rudder pedals, which is going to run you in another, right now, $120 to $200 to $500, depending on what set of rudder pedals you want to combine with it. So again, if you have a physical disability, this is not going to be an option for you. Now, if you can pick it up at the $350 price point, it starts to become in that ballpark of, well, do you buy the CH or do you buy the Thrustmaster Warthog? However, I found it to not be as great of a stick outside of military jet sims. If you're going to be flying DCS A10, as I do my J.J. Abrams impression here, if you're going to be flying DCS titles, A10C, F-15, Su-27, it is the stick built for DCS. And I would even go so far as to say Falcon BMS is in the same neighborhood. It is a very, very, very good jet sim stick. It is not, however, as great of a stick because the amount of force it takes to maintain precision along the center axis, it gets to be physically tiring after a period of time, and it takes quite a bit of force and effort in which to do so. So for games like World War I biplane games, or World War II dogfighting games, or space combat games, I just didn't find it as enjoyable. I also don't find it that enjoyable to use it in games like FSX or X-Plane, unless I'm flying like an F-18 or something like that, and I want a little bit more realistic flair toward military sim. So, outside of immersion and those other type of games, it is superior quality construction. I mean, the metal, the switches are all, basically the best on the market. You have plenty of buttons. These toggle switches actually kind of work against it unless the game's been programmed to deal with it. Since these are just single action button presses that actually function a little bit better in many games like Elite Dangerous and things like that. Because in Elite, it doesn't necessarily recognize if you have a single button toggle, let's say landing gear, which is, say you have it bound to the L key or something. It won't recognize that as pressing the L and that pressing the L unless you basically have to use one of your button presses for bind this to L and that to L in order to toggle the landing gear. Otherwise, you have to go down, landing gear up, landing gear down, and that can be a little bit of an annoyance. So it does seem to bind better in most flight sim games as opposed to space combat games. But other people have modded the sticks. There's some mods that you can add length here, and that will help some as far as that centering precision goes. You can get the FSSB 3 mod for it, which is another $650 to turn it into a force sensing stick. There's a lot of opportunity. Some people will remove kind of the center springing to remove this rigidity right in here. But again, you're taking it apart, you're modding the stick, and in the process, potentially voiding your warranty in the process. So I think a lot of it really depends on what type of game that you're playing. If you're going to be flying primarily DCS and you're on a budget, the X55 is perfectly acceptable for that. If you're flying DCS A10C and want to spend a little bit more money, get the Warthog. It is built for those games. If you're flying a wide range of flight games, CH gear. If you're going to be flying space combat games, CH gear. If you're going to be flying World War I, World War II combat games, CH gear. And frankly, it just takes a little bit more tweaking with some sensitivity curves, and this stuff performs just as well as that in DCS in terms of accuracy and precision of flight. The couple of things I wish it did have was the additional flapper switch down here, like here and here. That would make it a little bit more authentic to an actual F-16 stick. But that's a relatively minor consideration overall. It performs just as well. It also lacks a dual stage trigger. This one lacks a dual stage trigger. If you want to see more in-depth reviews on all of these, I've done them in previous videos on this channel. So, at any rate, this is getting ready to be shipped off to another member of Test Mostly Harmless for use in Elite Dangerous. So, Stardust, your joystick is on its way, and that'll probably just about leave me with my CH gear and the Thrustmaster Warthog for future reviews. Oh, and for 2015, further reviews on Flight Sim. I guess I should go back down here. Flight Sim yokes. So, look for those coming up in the coming days, weeks, months, and have a good day. See you next time.